Being selfish can change the world. Did you know that every year globally, 703,000 people take their own life? According to the World Health Organization, for every suicide, there are many more people who attempt it. That for each life lost, there's a ripple effect where the impacts are felt by up to 135 people, family members, friends, work colleagues, even first responders at the time of death. But what if I encouraged you to be more selfish? What if I told you that being selfish is an act of love? Bear with me while I give you some context. I want you to imagine for a moment life is hectic, you're busy, but you're drifting. You know you're called for more in life, that you're here for a bigger purpose, but somehow you've reached burnout, frustrated and so close to giving up on your dreams of having a better life because you're exhausted. There's a knowing deep down inside that you were born for a greater purpose. You long for peace, happiness, prosperity, and you question yourself, how can I possibly do more? Working hard is all I know, but the feeling of overwhelmed, just trying to juggle it all with a full life, taking care of everyone, family, work, a business on the side, the fun has gone, the things that you value falling apart, health, marriage, finances, and your sanity. Running around with your towel on fire and you're losing hope and ready to give up on it all. And that's when unhappiness sets in. Like a hamster on a wheel going round and round and round, doing everything for everyone else. How many people around the world feel like that? Don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful thing helping and taking care of others, but it's okay. And it's so very important to help yourself too. You see, because I was that woman and mum. From the outside looking in, life looked perfect and boy, was I good at wearing a mask. But my own cup was empty and that was my life on a repeat year after year after year. Was there a time in your life where you didn't have any more to give? I think about the time when all I did as a people pleaser was put other people first. Was one weekend being invited out with friends after a usual crazy corporate work week, and all I wanted to do was stop. I was so exhausted to a point where I wasn't even enjoying my social life because my cup was so empty. And I remember looking in the mirror, putting my makeup on, getting ready to go out, and the tears just started rolling down my cheeks. In that moment, I knew I was spent and I needed to do something about taking care of myself, but I felt selfish. I felt guilty. The time where I wanted to help my friend, but I just had nothing left. I went to the dinner, supported my friend the best that I could, but I just had nothing. I wasn't present. I couldn't listen to her needs. I had nothing left to give. See, I was so good at saying yes to everything and everyone else and saying no to myself. But I realized that for me to step into the highest version of myself, that I needed to start saying yes to me. Many of us have heard the important rule on a flight safety recording. So please put on your own oxygen mask first before helping others. It's a helpful phrase to remind us about the importance of putting ourselves first. And according to a survey conducted by Everyday Health, approximately 1/3 of people visited a doctor about something stress related, with 57% admitting that they're paralyzed by stress. So if we don't look after ourselves first, we aren't able to help ourselves, let alone helping other people around us. And I came to realize that it's okay to put ourselves first, and making a space for myself to stop and rest amongst the craziness of what life can be was the best boundaries I've ever put in place. It's benefited not only me, but those I care about. And another benefit I found was in my relationships, both as a wife and as a parent. You see, I had a business idea that was my ticket to freedom, the burning desire to grow as a person, to become an entrepreneur, and that prospect of achieving my goals and leaving the corporate world to have time freedom while contributing and making a positive impact in the lives of others and in the world truly excited me. Teaching others how to be prosperous lit my soul up, but sometimes we even put our own passions on hold. And for a long time, I suppressed following my dreams to solely support my husband's. And as much as I love working with my husband and I was part of that picture, there was a void for me. Although my husband's business is successful and impactful in its own right, on the inside, I was unfulfilled. There came a point where I realized that achievement didn't equal fulfillment. It was a hollow victory for me. We had a lack of communication going on. I remember the time that my husband was celebrating a milestone in his business and the champagne was flowing, but I just couldn't share in his success. I realized I had to have an important talk with myself. I asked myself, what is it that I truly wanted from life? What is it that you truly want? What are your personal desires and goals? What could you do about it? See, I had to be courageous and I had to have an honest conversation with my husband, and I wanted to help my husband, of course, be successful. I wanted to share in his excitement, but I was living in his shadow. Ultimately, he didn't want that for me either. He wanted me to be happy. He was fulfilled, but I wasn't. Something was missing. I wasn't living out the purpose I felt like I was called for in life, using the gifts and the talents that I was born with to make the positive impact in the world that I wanted to. But the great news is that both can be done. You can be fulfilled while supporting your partner's dreams and ambitions. And this is how I did it. I took out my journal. I blew the dust off my dreams that had been sitting there for what felt like forever, and I wrote out the desires of my heart. I took the time to pause, go within, and ask myself, what did I really want? And I want to ask you, what is it that you really want? That if you could do, be, have, and give whatever you want, what would you write down as the author and the creator of your own life? I shared my desires with my husband, and it was the first time in a long time that we'd communicated about what matters most to both of us. And, all we wanted for each other was happiness. And the great news is that if you solely want to support your husband, that's totally great. And I'm excited that you're fulfilled and you found that for yourself. I still do, to this day, love supporting my husband while following my own goals. And we're now the wind in each other's sails and creating the life of our dreams together while making the impact that we want to. In fact, Teesside University Business School suggests that the unique dynamics that are found in the entrepreneur and spouse relationship can introduce many forms of enabling qualities which contribute to the success of entrepreneurial ventures. And I also realized how being selfish is actually selfless. The time when being selfish and putting myself first actually improves relationships. The time when I was being unselfish and not putting myself first, I just didn't show up as my best self. When my cup is empty, my hubby and daughter got the worst of me. All they got was the impatient, reactive, and wife and mama. And I remember this one day feeling absolutely exhausted and depleted. And I'm so embarrassed and I cringe to tell you, but my little girl was only 3 and crying persistently as sometimes a toddler does, right? And it just set me off. And when she needed her mummy the most, I wasn't there. And instead, I lost it. I picked her up and I threw her on the bed, screaming at her, slamming the door behind me. I was so impatient, unhappy in life, and angry, so unfulfilled, and my perspective of family and the world was twisted. Can you imagine how that made that little girl feel? And that's how I was showing up as a mother. When I look back now on how I reacted, I was an emotional train wreck. And we've all been there. The Nationwide Children Organization explains how parents' bodies' chemical response to toxic stress and how it affects the child's short and long-term health. Studies have shown associations between toxic stress and changes in the child's brain structure. And to be honest, the unresourceful and reactive way that I was showing up as a parent really frightened me. It was in that moment, that time I had to do something about it. And I look back now, and as you know, there was an end to that beautiful storm that taught me it was okay to make space and time to be selfish and put myself first. Because when I did that, I found calm, I found peace, I found joy and happiness. And I did that by letting go of the things that no longer served me. And I started doing more of the things that made me feel good. Because when I feel good, I do good. And when I do good, I attract good. I visualized the goals that were important to me, ones that I resonated with and ones that were exciting to work towards. I had fun doing the things that I love. I journaled, I danced, I leaned into my faith, I played, and I prayed. See, when I served myself first, I could then serve others better. Would you agree that we can't give from an empty cup? That putting yourself first is actually an act of service. It's a blessing. Now, since choosing to put myself first, I look at the relationship with my daughter, and with absolute gratitude, now in her teenage years, we have the most connected, safe, and fun-loving relationship that I once dreamt of as a mother, because I put myself first. Today, I have the marriage of my dreams because as a wifey for lifey, I put myself first. You would argue the case that our loved ones, they deserve for us to be selfish. You would argue that when we choose to pour into ourselves first, that not only do we benefit, do we feel good and we do good, but it causes a positive ripple effect from our overflow into the lives of the ones that we love the most, and a ripple effect throughout the world. It still blows my mind today, the power of giving, the power of love in our lives. So can you see now how being selfish can actually be selfless?